How to build confidence when you feel worthless. Confidence isn't built in moments of strength. It's built in rooms where you sit alone, feeling like a failure, wondering why everyone else seems to move forward while you stay stuck. Confidence doesn't grow in victory. It grows in the shadows of self-doubt, when you feel invisible, insignificant, worthless. But there's a truth most people never learn: your lowest moment isn't the end. It's the doorway. And that doorway opened for a young man named Daniel Calder. The man who couldn't see his own worth. Daniel wasn't dramatic. He wasn't overly emotional. He didn't talk about his problems. He just carried them quietly. He carried the feeling that he was always a step behind. That he didn't matter. That he had nothing special to offer. He saw friends getting promotions. People posting their achievements. Co-workers speaking confidently in meetings. But Daniel? He felt like a ghost, present, but invisible. He tried faking confidence once in a while but felt like a fraud every time. His mind whispered, "Why would anyone take you seriously? You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough. You're not enough, period." And the worst part wasn't the voice. It was how true it felt. The breaking point: one night, Daniel sat alone in his small apartment, the glow of his laptop illuminating his tired eyes. He was staring at a job application form, hands shaking above the keyboard. He had been trying to apply for this position for 2 months. Every time he told himself, "Tonight. I'll submit it tonight." But when he reached the part about skills and accomplishments, his chest tightened and his mind filled with fog. He wasn't scared of the job. He was scared of being seen. Because deep down, he believed the world would look at his application and laugh. Eventually, he closed the laptop gently, as if even touching it too firmly might reveal his weakness. He whispered, "I can't do this. I'm not anything." And that sentence broke him. He covered his face with both hands, silent tears slipping through his fingers. He wasn't crying because of the job. He was crying because he didn't know how to stop feeling worthless. Then a voice from the dark corner of the room said, "You're wrong, Daniel." Daniel froze. His heart crawled into his throat. He slowly looked up. A man was sitting in the corner chair, calm, steady, eyes warm but intense. Daniel hadn't heard him enter. Hadn't seen him. But something about him felt familiar, safe, even. Who are you?" Daniel asked, voice trembling. The man leaned forward. "I'm someone who knows exactly why you feel the way you do." Daniel swallowed. "You shouldn't be here." "How did you?" The man raised a hand, gently interrupting. "You're not in danger," he said. "I'm here because you're about to make a mistake." Daniel blinked. "What mistake?" The man locked eyes with him. "You're about to let a temporary emotion decide the rest of your life." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The truth about feeling worthless. The man stood and walked toward the desk. "You think confidence is built on accomplishments," he said. "On success. On being admired." He shook his head. "No. Confidence is built on something far simpler." He touched Daniel's chest right over his heart. "Clarity." Daniel frowned. "Clarity about what?" The man smiled faintly. "About why you feel worthless in the first place." He gestured around the room. "This has nothing to do with jobs, or skills, or achievements. This is about the story you tell yourself. And right now, your story is a lie." Daniel's voice cracked. "What lie?" The man stepped closer. "The lie that your value depends on your success." Daniel's breath caught. The man continued, "Confidence isn't believing you'll succeed. It's believing you'll be okay even if you fail." Daniel's chest tightened. "But I don't feel that," he whispered. "I know," the man replied. Because someone taught you to tie your worth to your results. Daniel's eyes widened. What do you mean, someone taught me? The man held his gaze. We'll get there. But first, you need to understand something. He pointed at the laptop. You weren't scared of the application. You were scared of confirming the negative things you believe about yourself. Daniel looked down, trembling. Yes, he whispered. That's exactly it. The man nodded. And that means your problem isn't confidence. It's identity. He leaned in. You don't build confidence by achieving more. You build it by repairing the part of you that feels unworthy. The first step, the man pulled out a small, worn notebook from his coat. He placed it in Daniel's hands. Before we rebuild confidence, he said, we must understand the wound beneath it. Daniel opened the notebook. Inside was a single question written in clean handwriting. Who told you that you weren't enough? His hands began to shake. The man spoke softly. You weren't born feeling worthless, Daniel. You learned it. Daniel felt tears rising again, but this time, they weren't tears of collapse. They were tears of recognition. The man walked toward the door. Tomorrow, he said, I'll tell you where confidence really comes from. And why you lost it. He opened the door halfway. But tonight, keep the notebook close. Your story is about to change. And then he stepped through the doorway, leaving Daniel alone in the quiet glow of the lamp, holding the notebook that carried a question he had avoided his entire life. A question whose answer would reveal the truth behind his worthlessness. And the identity of the man who understood it so deeply. Daniel didn't sleep much. Not because of fear, but because of the notebook resting on his nightstand. Who told you that you weren't enough? That single sentence pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. At 3 a.m., he opened the notebook again, staring at the question under the dim glow of his desk lamp. It felt like a door he had never dared to open. A question he had run from for years. He whispered to himself, I don't know. But that wasn't the truth. He did know. He just didn't want to remember. When the sun finally rose, Daniel felt like he had aged 10 years overnight. But at 9 a.m. sharp, as if the universe knew exactly how much courage he had left, there was a knock at the door. Daniel opened it. The same man stood there, calm as ever. You read the question, he said quietly. Daniel nodded. Yes. And, the man asked gently. Daniel hesitated. I don't know the answer. The man studied him for a moment. You do, he said. You just haven't learned how to face it yet. He stepped inside. Sit. We have work to do. The root of worthlessness. The man sat across from Daniel at the small kitchen table. Daniel, he said, listen carefully. He pointed to the notebook. The feeling of worthlessness is never born in adulthood. It's planted in childhood and watered over time. Daniel swallowed. What do you mean? The man leaned forward. Confidence doesn't disappear. It gets taken. He held up one finger. Taken by words. A second finger. Taken by experiences. A third finger. Taken by people who never knew how much power they had over you. Daniel looked down at his hands. The man continued, think back. Before the doubt, before the self-criticism, there was a version of you who was fearless. Daniel's throat tightened. He remembered that boy. Curious. Creative. Excited by everything. But life had changed him. How do I get that version back? Daniel whispered. The stranger shook his head. You don't get him back. You become the man he needed. Daniel felt that sentence hit him in the deepest part of his chest. The scene he never forgot. Tell me the earliest moment you felt small, the man said. Daniel closed his eyes. Memories flickered, then one sharpened. A classroom. A teacher. A room full of students. Daniel was 8 years old, standing at the front of the class with a drawing he had worked on all week. He was proud. He believed in it. Until the teacher said, "Sit down, Daniel. We don't have time for childish sketches today." The class laughed. Daniel sat down quietly, feeling something inside him collapse. When he opened his eyes, the stranger was watching him gently. That moment, the man said, was the first cut. Daniel felt his breath tremble. But that wasn't the only one, was it? Daniel shook his head. No, he remembered his father criticizing him for not being tough enough. His older brother calling him pathetic whenever he lost a game. A partner in college telling him he was emotionally weak. All of those memories returned like ghosts. The stranger spoke softly, and somewhere along the way, you believed them. Daniel's shoulders slumped. Yes. The man nodded. That belief became your identity. Not because it was true, but because no one taught you how to challenge it. The false identities we adopt. The stranger stood and opened the curtains. Light poured into the room. This, he said, is what people don't understand about confidence. He pointed at the sunlight. Confidence isn't loud. It isn't flashy. It isn't forcing yourself to act brave. He lowered his voice. Confidence is the quiet understanding that you are not who your pain says you are. Daniel sat upright. You are not the moments that broke you. You are not the words that belittled you. You are not the failures you made when you were trying your best. He pointed at the notebook again. You are not what other people said you were. Daniel felt something warm spread through his chest, like hope was waking up. The 3 lies of worthlessness. The stranger continued, pacing slowly. When someone feels worthless, they are always held hostage by 3 lies. He raised a finger. Lie 1, I'm not enough. Truth, you were told you weren't enough by someone who couldn't see your worth. Another finger. Lie 2, other people are better than me. Truth, you only see their highlights, not their battles. A third finger. Lie 3, I'll never be confident. Truth, confidence is built, not born. Daniel exhaled shakily. So how do I build it? The stranger smiled slightly. That's what you're about to learn. The first brick of confidence. The man sat back down in front of Daniel. To rebuild confidence, you need one thing above all else. Daniel leaned forward. What? The man tapped his chest. Proof. Daniel blinked. Proof? Yes, the stranger said. Confidence is not a feeling. It's evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. He pointed at the closed laptop. You didn't submit the application because you believed your failure was proof of who you were. He looked back at Daniel. But confidence is built by doing the small things that prove you're capable. Daniel frowned. Like what? The stranger stood. Come. The exercise of reclamation. They walked to Daniel's bathroom. The stranger pointed at the mirror. Stand here, he said. Daniel did. Now, the man continued, I want you to do something simple. Wash your face. Daniel blinked. That's it? That's it. Daniel turned on the faucet. Cup of water. Gentle splash over the cheeks. He dried his face with a towel. When he looked back into the mirror, something small had changed. He wasn't transformed. But he looked awake. Alive. More present. The stranger nodded. That is the first brick. Daniel frowned. How? Because you gave your body proof that you can take care of yourself. Daniel stared at the reflection. The man continued, confidence is built from thousands of tiny acts of self-respect. A pause. And yours starts today. The reveal. Daniel turned to the man. Why do you care so much? Why help me? The stranger's expression softened. Because I made a promise, he said. A promise to who? The man hesitated, for the first time since Daniel met him. To someone who loved you long before you learned to hate yourself. Daniel's heart dropped. Who? He whispered. The stranger stepped closer. Tomorrow, he said, I'll tell you the truth. He walked toward the door. And Daniel, yes? Bring the notebook. You'll need it. The door closed. And Daniel stood alone, the question echoing in his mind, who told you that you weren't enough? Tomorrow, he would find out who took his confidence. And who sent the man who came to return it. Daniel barely recognized himself in the mirror the next morning. Not because he looked different, but because he felt different. It was subtle. Fragile. Like the first flicker of light after a long night. But it was there. The notebook sat on his desk, open to the single question that haunted him: who told you that you weren't enough? He'd written nothing under it. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he knew it too well. At 9 a.m. sharp, the stranger knocked again. Daniel opened the door before the second knock landed. You slept, the man observed. Daniel nodded. Better than I thought I would. Good, the stranger said. Today will be heavier. Daniel stepped aside to let him in. The man walked to the kitchen table, sat, and gestured for Daniel to do the same. Are you ready to find out who took your confidence? He asked. Daniel's stomach twisted. He nodded. Good, the man said softly. Then let's begin. The first wound. The stranger tapped the notebook. Confidence doesn't disappear in one moment, he said. It's chipped away piece by piece until the person beneath forgets they ever had it. Daniel's throat tightened. Let's go back, the man continued, to the first memory you told me, the classroom. Daniel nodded slowly. You stood up with your drawing, the man said, because you believed your work mattered. Daniel swallowed. It did. I worked hard on it. And your teacher dismissed it, the man said. Dismissed you. Daniel closed his eyes. That moment taught you something deadly, the stranger said. It taught you that effort leads to humiliation. That visibility leads to pain. Daniel felt his hands shaking. But, the man continued gently, one person cannot break a child unless they already feel alone. He leaned forward. Daniel, who comforted you after that day? Daniel hesitated. No one. The stranger nodded. That is why the wound stayed. The second wound now, the stranger said, what about your father? Daniel tensed immediately. The stranger noticed. How did he respond to your sensitivity? Daniel's voice cracked. He didn't like it. Said I needed to man up. Said I was too emotional. Too soft. And what did that teach you? The man asked. That my feelings were wrong, Daniel whispered. That I was wrong. The stranger nodded sadly. That's the second wound. He spoke quietly. When a child learns their emotions are unacceptable, they learn they are unacceptable. Daniel felt tears forming again. My father didn't mean to hurt me, he whispered. I know, the stranger said. But intention doesn't erase impact. He gave Daniel a moment. Then he asked, and your brother? Daniel's jaw tightened. He called me names. Mocked me whenever I tried something new. Told me I'd never be good at anything. The stranger exhaled slowly. There's the third wound. The dangerous belief. The stranger stood and walked to the window. Do you see the pattern? He asked, looking outside. Daniel shook his head. The man turned around, eyes full of compassion. You didn't learn that you were worthless. You learned that being yourself brought pain. Daniel froze. And so, the man continued, you built a belief to survive: if I shrink, I won't be hurt. If I stay quiet, I won't be judged. If I stay invisible, I won't disappoint anyone. Daniel felt his entire body tremble. Those sentences, he had never spoken them out loud, never even consciously thought them. But they had shaped his entire life. The stranger walked closer. And once that belief settles inside you, confidence dies. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You haven't spent your life lacking confidence. You've spent your life trying to stay safe. Daniel's breath shattered. The reclamation. The stranger stepped back. It's time you learn the truth. Daniel wiped his face. What truth? The man pointed at Daniel's heart. You are not broken. You are conditioned. A pause. And conditioning can be undone. Daniel stared at him. How? By facing the person who made you question your worth, the stranger said. By confronting the real source of the wound. Daniel felt his heart drop. Who? He whispered. The stranger reached into his coat again and pulled out a photograph. He slid it across the table. Daniel picked it up with trembling hands. It was him as a child, sitting at a dining table. Drawing. Focused. Smiling. Behind him stood a man. Tall. Cold. Unsmiling. His father. Daniel's breath caught. The stranger spoke gently. This was the first moment your confidence cracked. Not because of what he said, he pointed to the child in the photo. But because of what you felt. Daniel swallowed hard. What did I feel? The stranger's voice dropped to a whisper. You felt watched. Judged. Pressured. And most of all, you felt like you weren't enough for him. The photograph slipped from Daniel's fingers. No, Daniel whispered. He loved me. Love and wounding can coexist, the man said softly. Your father gave you many things. But he did not know how to give you worth. Daniel's chest constricted. So he took it instead. Daniel broke. The tears came hard this time, not quiet, not contained, but raw and shaking. The stranger stepped closer, kneeling in front of him. Daniel, he said gently, your father shaped your worth, but he does not get to define it. Daniel lifted his eyes slowly. Then who does? The stranger smiled faintly, a smile full of heartbreak and hope. You. The connection. Daniel wiped his face. But why you? He whispered. Why are you helping me? The stranger hesitated. For the first time, his calm expression cracked. I'm here, he said slowly, because someone in your life asked me to watch over you. Daniel's eyes widened. Who? The stranger swallowed, voice soft and steady. Your mother. Daniel's heart stopped. My mother? The man nodded. She saw the wounds your father never meant to inflict. She knew you would grow into a man who blamed himself. And before she passed, his voice tightened for the first time. She asked me to return when you reached the point where you couldn't find your worth alone. Daniel felt his entire world tilt. My mother knew me that well? She knew you better than anyone, the stranger said. And she knew this moment would come. Daniel covered his mouth, overwhelmed. The stranger stood slowly. And now that you know who took your confidence, he held out his hand. It's time to learn how to rebuild it. Daniel stared at the stranger's outstretched hand. It didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a lifeline. A bridge back to the version of himself he lost long ago. Slowly, he placed his hand in the stranger's palm. Warm. Steady. Grounded. Come, the man said softly. There's something you need to see. The place he avoided for years. They walked down the quiet street, the air cool against Daniel's skin. Every step felt surreal. Every breath felt heavier. The stranger led with calm certainty, as if he had walked this path 1,000 times. After a few minutes, they turned a corner and stopped in front of a small park. Daniel froze. He knew this place. It was where he used to play as a child. Where his mother brought him on quiet afternoons. Where he felt safe. But it was also where, one day, his father sat him on a bench and told him, in a moment of frustration, "Stop being so emotional. No one respects a weak boy." Daniel had forgotten the park, but he had never forgotten that sentence. His stomach twisted. "Why are we here?" he whispered. The stranger didn't answer. He simply guided him to the old wooden bench. They sat. The park was silent except for distant birdsong. "Daniel," the stranger said, "this is where your definition of strength was poisoned." Daniel felt tears prick his eyes again. "You believed strength meant shutting down your emotions. You believed worth meant never struggling. You believed confidence meant pretending nothing hurt." Daniel closed his eyes, jaw trembling. "That belief," the man continued, "is why you've spent your whole life feeling worthless." He turned to face Daniel. "Because you were trying to live as someone you were never meant to be." The burden he was never meant to carry. Daniel looked at the bench beneath him, hands shaking on his knees. "I tried so hard," he whispered. "I tried to be stronger. More confident. Less emotional." The stranger nodded. "I know. It never worked. I know." Daniel's voice broke. "No matter how much I tried, I always ended up feeling like a disappointment." The stranger's eyes softened. "That's because you weren't failing." A pause. "You were suffocating." Daniel looked up sharply. "What?" "You weren't becoming stronger," the stranger said. "You were abandoning yourself." Daniel swallowed hard. "You can't build confidence," the man continued, "when you're at war with your own nature." A long silence hung between them. "The real wound," the man said gently, "is that you believed your softness made you weak." Daniel's throat tightened. "It didn't," the man said. "It made you human." The gift his mother left behind. Daniel wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve. "She knew," Daniel whispered. "My mother, she knew this would happen." "Yes," the stranger said softly. "She knew your heart. She knew you were gentle. She knew you absorbed the world around you." He turned toward Daniel. "She worried that without her, you would believe that your gentleness was a flaw." Daniel felt something crack inside him. "Before she passed," the stranger added, "she told me, he will grow up in a world that asks him to harden. Please, don't let him." Daniel's breath caught. "But I did," he whispered. "I hardened. I hid everything. I pretended nothing mattered." The stranger shook his head. "You didn't harden. You shut down. There's a difference." Daniel stared at him. "You shut down," the man continued, "because no one showed you how to be strong without losing yourself." He placed a hand over Daniel's heart. "So I came back, to show you." The real source of confidence. The stranger stood and motioned for Daniel to stand too. "Now," he said softly, "let me teach you the truth your father never knew." Daniel stood. The stranger placed both hands lightly on Daniel's shoulders. "Confidence," he said, "is not the belief that you are perfect." His voice dropped lower. "It is the belief that you are valuable, even when you are not perfect." Daniel shook his head. "But how do I feel valuable? How do I believe it?" The stranger smiled, not widely, but with a quiet pride. "You do it by giving yourself the things your father could not. The 4 acts that build confidence. The stranger raised one finger. 1. You validate your own emotions. You don't push them away. You listen to them. A second finger. 2. You keep small promises to yourself. Not grand goals. Small, repeatable wins. A third finger. 3. You speak to yourself the way your mother spoke to you. Kind. Firm. Loving. A fourth finger. 4. You let who you are be enough before you achieve anything. Daniel's breath trembled. But what if I fail? He whispered. The stranger stepped closer. Then you fail, he said softly. And you try again. He squeezed Daniel's shoulder. That's confidence, not perfection, but persistence. The final revelation. Daniel looked down, overwhelmed. When he finally lifted his eyes, the stranger was watching him with an expression Daniel hadn't seen yet: sadness, love, and release. Why do you look like that? Daniel asked quietly. The stranger exhaled slowly. Because this is the last time you'll need me. Daniel's heart dropped. What? No, I still need help. I still don't. The stranger shook his head gently. No, Daniel. Look around. Daniel looked at the park. At the bench. At the sunlight. And then he realized, for the first time in years, he wasn't drowning. He wasn't collapsing. He wasn't hiding. He was standing. Breathing. Present. Alive. The stranger continued, you faced the wound. You spoke the truth. You remembered your mother's love. And you let yourself feel again. He stepped back. You built the first layer of confidence, not by fixing yourself, a pause, but by understanding yourself. Daniel's eyes burned. So this is goodbye? The stranger nodded once. Not forever. Just until you forget again. Daniel took a shaky step forward. Will I? The stranger smiled softly. Sometimes. All humans do. He placed one final hand on Daniel's shoulder. But now you know where to find yourself again. The man who walks differently. The stranger turned away. Daniel wanted to call out. Ask him to stay. Ask for one more lesson. But he didn't. Because for the first time in his life, he felt strong enough to stand alone. He whispered, "Thank you." The stranger didn't turn around. But Daniel heard him respond, "Your mother would be proud." And then he walked into the morning light, slowly fading into the world around them. Daniel stood there long after he left, hand over his heart, breathing deeply. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel worthless. He felt worthy. Exactly as he was. Exactly as he always should have been. And that was the beginning of his confidence.